Hi everyone, welcome to Dr. Vicky Writes. I'm Dr. Vicky, but nobody actually calls me Dr. Vicky, so I'm just Vicky. And in this video, I will be talking about how to write up your lit review. So this video covers the 6th objective of the course. And you can find the course syllabus in the video description below. So before we dive in, I want you to think about what you might already know about writing up a literature review and about what you feel like you still need to learn or any worries and concerns that you have around this topic. And I recommend you take a few minutes to jot down the first few things that come to mind there. Now, so let's say at this point that you know what your research question or project title is, and you've conducted your lit review as I discussed in a previous video. And you've got the results of your lit review stored in your lit review individual article notes document. So now what you need to do is write up those notes in a story-like form that ultimately explains why it is important that your research question be answered. Or in other words, why your project is worthwhile. So a literature review at dissertation level should probably be up to about 5,000 words long, and one at thesis level is probably going to be more like 25,000 words long. I think the most effective way to write up your literature review is to enroll a close friend or family member, one who is patient, helpful, and supportive, to listen to you tell the story of why your project is worthwhile. That'll obviously be easier to do at dissertation level because if you're doing a thesis, then they might have to sit and listen to you talk for a very long time. So they will need a lot of patience, or you might need to enroll them to sit with you over multiple sittings, which is obviously a bigger ask. So anyway, once you've identified that person, schedule an hour or two where they will be able to give you their full attention. Tell them what your research question or project title is. Then read over, so tell them that beforehand. Then by yourself beforehand, read over your literature review notes a good few times so that you have kind of got all your lit review notes fresh in your mind. Don't need to memorize them or anything like that. And then sit down with your person, put your phone recorder on, or another type of recording device if you use one, and then in detail explain to them as best you can why it is important that your research question be answered. And like, try not to actually look at your notes or anything like that when you're doing that. Just try to go with what's fresh in your mind from reading your notes, because usually what's most important will stay at the forefront of your mind. So you're trying to explain to them in detail why your project is worthwhile based on the notes in your mind that you've gathered when you conducted your lit review. And don't stop discussing it with them until you feel like the person that you're with has some type of basic grasp of the concept of your project and why it's important. So the reason I think that this is the most effective way to start the process of writing up your lit review is because when we speak, our brain has no other option but to keep producing content, let's say. Words will just come out without too much effort or too much obvious effort. And when you're speaking, even if you have to pause or take a few minutes to think, that's why it's important to be with somebody who you feel comfortable with. That's okay, because you will inevitably have to. when you're sitting down explaining to them why your project's worthwhile. But when we sit down to write, it's very easy for us to start overthinking and then get caught up in things like sentence structure, what word we should use here, where we should put certain punctuation and all that. And then we end up our brains start to hurt and we feel paralyzed. And then we might just sit and stare at our computer for an hour and make no progress at all. But if you're speaking for an hour to somebody, it's very, very unlikely that you're going to get stuck on the first sentence that you say out loud and then just be sitting staring at them in silence for 1 hour, But it definitely is important that you record that convo, because you're going to use what you've said later on. And another benefit of doing this is that during your time together, the person who you're with, that you've chosen, your chosen person, will probably ask you questions. Actually encourage them to ask you questions. And that will help you clarify certain points to even just yourself, and also help to fill any gaps that you've got in your explanation. So by the end of your time together, you will have a recording that you can then type up to produce your first full draft of your lit review. And my phone that I have right now, a Google Pixel 8, I think it is, it produces transcripts of my recordings, although they're terrible, they don't match what I was saying. So depending on what phone you have, you could just edit the transcript. And then once you've kind of typed up that first draft, the next step is probably to find references, to kind of slot in what references you've referred to inadvertently when you're speaking, and actually put those references in, because you need to be able to support all the points that you've made with references in your lit review. So it's again very important to stick to your schedule here. So once your allotted lit review writing up time is up, 1 week for a dissertation and 10 weeks for a PhD thesis, then you've got to move on, because the next steps are methods and results, and you've got to produce some results for your project to be a success. And you can always go back to finessing your lit review at the end if you've got time. Or you can, maybe just things will come to you that you can quickly add in here and there as you're doing your analysis. So if you want a specific task to do after watching this video, here it is. Think about all of your close-up friends and family members and pick out a few that meet your requirements of someone who is patient, supportive, helpful, and then introduce them to the idea of them being your literature review sounding board member type thing. Ask them if they'd be able and willing to be that person for you, because they might be too busy or whatever, and that's fine. And also ask them, if they say that yeah, they're up for it, ask them when might be the best time for them to sit down with you when the time comes to do so, because you might be watching this and you've not actually started your project, but you should have a good idea of when the writing up your literature review week will be. And that way, when your lit review is due to begin, you can just reach out to that person to firm up the day and the time that you're going to meet, because you've already prepared them. If you leave starting to consider people who might help you with this to the time when you're actually on a deadline to complete your project, say at the end of conducting your lit review, then that will just definitely add a layer of stress to an already stressful situation. So if you have any questions about any of that, please put them in the comment section below or email me at drvicky911@gmail.com. I also encourage you to think about the following questions and do the same. Did I clarify anything for you? Did I address any worries or concerns that you had around this topic? Do you feel that you've learned anything new that will be of value to you? And how does what I've covered relate to your own personal situation? I'll check and respond to comments every second weekday. And while I might not have time to respond directly to emails, I will make sure that I read them all and reply in some way. So thanks for watching. See you next time.